Hi, I'm Casey. Welcome to the iHeart Latin channel, lesson number 10, where we are introducing verbs of the second conjugation. So you'll recall that verbs belong to families called conjugations. In the last lesson, we talked about verbs that belong to the first conjugation. This lesson, we're talking about verbs that belong to the second conjugation. How do we tell the difference? That's a great question. So you'll recall in the last lesson, when verbs are presented in Latin, they're presented with these four principal parts. So you usually get these four forms of the verb when you're being introduced to something. So brand new vocabulary, you'll see these four, what we call principal parts. And to determine which conjugation a verb belongs to, you look at the second principal part, which is the infinitive. And if it ends in a long ERE, then it belongs to the second conjugation. So you recall in the last lesson, if this second principal part ends in an ARE, then it belongs to the first conjugation. The long ERE, the second conjugation. So that's how we tell the difference. And if you look at this verb here, you'll notice a slightly different pattern. So if you recall in the last lesson, the first conjugation verbs, you'll notice this third principal part has a slightly different spelling. And sometimes that's a tip-off too. However, the only sure way to know is to look at the second principal part. If it ends in a long ERE, then it's the second conjugation. You may also recall in the last lesson, we talked about three different tenses: the present indicative active tense, the imperfect indicative active, and the future indicative active. So we are going to apply everything we learned in the last lesson to these verbs of the second conjugation today. So if I want to conjugate a verb from the second conjugation, I'm going to follow the same pattern as I did for a verb of the first conjugation. I am going to drop the ERE in the second principal part to find the stem for these three tenses. So remember, if I want to make a verb form in Latin, verb is an inflected language, I need to put a very particular ending on that verb to indicate who's performing the action, what tense it is, what person it is. And so I need to find the stem. So the way we find the stem is, as I said, we're going to drop the ERE in the second principal part, which is the infinitive. So we'll just drop that there. So for this particular word, moneo, monere, monui, monetus, then my stem becomes M-O-N. For this word here, meaning have, habeo, habere, habui, habitus, we're going to drop the ERE and we get an H-A-B. There's my stem. All of the endings for the various tenses say the same. They follow the same pattern. So that's really, really nice. So you've already learned the endings for the present tense, the endings for the imperfect tense, and the endings for the future tense. Now all we have to do is just figure out which tense we need to use and just plug those in. We also need to figure out which conjugating vowel to use. So let's look at these sentences I have up here on the board. Caesar warns the sailors. So first thing we do is we need to find out who are we talking about? Who's our subject? So we ask, who or what is this sentence about? It's about Caesar. That's my nominative. And remember, when we think about nouns, we have to think about GNC, gender, number, and case. So Caesar is masculine and it's singular. Now let's add one more thing since we're starting to add verbs into the mix. Let's think about what person is Caesar. The person performing the action, is he first, second, or third person? Caesar is a he, she, or an it. So he is third person. And now I've determined that this is a third person singular subject. So next thing I do is I want to find my verb. So I ask, what's Caesar doing or being? He's warning. So here's my verb. And recall that the rule in Latin is that your verb has to match your subject in number and in person. So if I have a third person singular subject, I need to have a third person singular ending for this verb here. So I'm going to write third person singular here. Now I'm going to look at this verb and I'm going to ask myself, what tense is this in? Is it present, imperfect, or future? And just to review, present tense obviously is something that's happening right now. Remember that the imperfect tense is a past tense verb, but it has this idea of kind of an ongoing action. So it's usually translated as was doing something. So was warning, was having. It's a little bit different than the perfect past tense, which we'll get to later. And so I look at this and I think, okay, is this present? Is it imperfect? Is it future? Is it going to happen in the future? It's present. It's happening right now. So the present tense. And then can I answer this question, Caesar warns who or what? Yes, he's warning the sailors. So this is my direct object. That is the accusative case. Is it singular or plural? It's plural. Is it masculine, feminine, or neuter? It's masculine. So if I was going to put this all together, remember that verbs usually come last in Latin. We're going to go subject, object, verb. So we're going to start with the subject. So a nominative singular masculine form of Caesar is just Caesar, Caesar, Caesaris, third declension. And then my direct object is going to come next. So what is an accusative plural masculine ending for sailors? Well, it's in the first declension, so the accusative plural would be nautas. And then warns. So first, if I'm going to conjugate this verb, I need my stem. So my word for warn is moneo monere, monui monetus. I have found my stem, so M-O-N. In the second conjugation, we need a conjugating vowel. That conjugating vowel is an E. So remember, the conjugating vowel in the first conjugation is an A. Now in the second conjugation is an E. It's kind of easy to remember because it just follows the chronological order of A, E, I, O, U. That's kind of how I remember it. So here's my conjugating vowel. Now I need to find the right ending to put on this word. So I have a third person singular present tense form of this verb. So I'm going to come down to my present tense endings. Third person singular is a T. So I'm just going to put that right on the end of my verb there. And this is how it would read. Caesar nautas monet. That's how that sentence would be translated. So let's look at the second one here. I was warning the sailors. So now instead of a third person singular subject, we have what? First person singular subject. So who or what is the sentence about? It's about me. I'm doing the warning. So I have first person singular. I happen to be a woman, so I am feminine. What am I doing or being? I'm warning. So here's my verb. I have to match my verb to my subject in number and person. So I'm going to use first person singular personal signs here. And then I'm going to ask myself, is this present tense, is it imperfect, or is it future? Well, I was doing something. So I was doing this in the past, has this kind of feeling of an ongoing action. I was warning the sailors, and maybe I'm still warning them today. So this is the imperfect tense. So I will use imperfect endings there. And then can I answer the question, I was warning who or what? Absolutely, I was warning the sailors. Here's my accusative. We've already determined it's plural and masculine. So if I'm going to translate this sentence in particular, I know that I'm going to go subject, object, verb. However, in this particular case, I can blend all of these words into one word because you don't necessarily need personal pronouns in the first or second person when you're conjugating Latin verbs, because you can tell by the ending already who's performing the action. So I'm going to lump all of these words into one. So that means I'm actually going to start with my accusative this time. So I'll start with nautas, and then I will plug in my stem, so M-O-N. I need my conjugating vowel, which is an E in the second conjugation. And then I'm going to look down here at the imperfect first person singular endings, which is bam. So this word would be mone bam. So this sentence would read nautas mone bam. All right, and the last sentence here, they will have victory. So again, I'm going to start out by asking who or what is this sentence about? It's about them. Here's my subject. So here's my nominative. It is third person plural. We don't know exactly who they are. When in doubt, I always go with masculine. They will have victory. So what are they doing or being? They are having. So here's my verb. I've already determined that it's third person plural, so my verb has to match the subject and number it in case. So I'm going to use a third person plural ending here. And can I answer the question, they will have they will have who or what? Yes, they will have victory. This is an accusative. It is singular and it is feminine. And then I'm going to ask myself, will have. What tense is this? Is it present tense? Is it imperfect? Is it happening in the past but ongoing? Or is it future? Is it something that's going to happen? It's in the future tense. It's something that's going to happen. So I will use future endings. So again, I can wrap all of these words into one since my endings communicate who's performing the action in an inflected language like Latin. So this time I'm going to start with my accusative, which is victoriam. And how would I say they will have? Well, I found my stem. It's HAB for the word have. I need to insert my conjugating vowel, which in the second conjugation is an E. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to look over here at my future third person plural endings, which is bunt. And so that's how we would translate that sentence in particular. Victoriam habebunt. And that means they will have victory. So hopefully you're able to see some of the same patterns as we learned last week. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. I'm happy to answer them. Also, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. You can hit the bell button if you want to be notified when a new episode is out. Thank you for watching. I hope you keep studying. Walete.